So with the release of Rings of Power's latest trailer, it seemed like a fitting time for me to delve into this topic. It feels like a lifetime ago now that I initially started writing out my thoughts concerning Rings of Power's first season. And if you hadn't already guessed from the title, it ended up shifting into a much broader topic. Either way, I think I've delayed things long enough, so without further ado, let's get into it. I really wanted to say something good about Rings of Power. Originally, this video was going to focus on how much I enjoyed this exchange between Elrond and Durin.
You missed my wedding, the birth of my children, 2 of them. 20 years may be the blink of an eye to an elf, but I've lived an entire life in that time. A life you missed.
So what do you have to say to that? Congratulations.
And how it wonderfully exemplified simple subversion. I intended to talk about how I viewed Galadriel as a tragic anti-villain, someone who stubbornly pushed through every obstacle only to realize in the end that she'd been helping her enemy all along. And I wanted to share my satisfaction over hearing the always follow your nose line from Eleanor's mysterious friend, despite how predictable the confirmation was. But the more I thought about it, the more I wondered, what if no one else was surprised by the fact that Elrond said congratulations instead of I'm sorry? What about the landslide of issues that have been addressed regarding Galadriel's character? And if Gandalf's reveal was so predictable, then as a writer striving to uphold objective standards, what good did it serve to voice my subjective feelings on the matter? Was I really offering something of value by solely focusing on the nice feelings this show gave me while ignoring everything else? Needless to say, this all led to a deeply introspective rabbit hole of thought which eventually landed me at the question, is there a place for bad writing? Many months ago now, I had an argument with some members of a writing group on Discord that all started when I made a somewhat self-deprecating joke about finally finding something enjoyable to read on Wattpad. And just to be clear, I am a Wattpad author, which is where the self-deprecating part of it factors in. And I'd seen plenty such humor on the server before. So at most I expected to get a few laughs and the opportunity to share what I enjoyed about the book I was referring to. Instead, I was served an onslaught of judgment. How dare I suggest that a platform that is practically infamous for its subpar reading material is not the most fruitful supplier of good writing? I spent most of the argument in a state of utter confusion at this reaction. Eventually, mods got involved. It was a whole thing. And I ultimately ended up leaving the server when I realized that the general attitude seemed to indicate a complete unwillingness to acknowledge bad writing for what it was. Of course, that was far from the first or last argument I'd had concerning such things, and I'll touch on the whole subjectivity discussion in a moment. But to me, this outright rejection of labeling stories as bad felt like a rejection of progress. The reason Wattpad's content is viewed as widely subpar is because so many new writers, myself included, started out there. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. We all have to start somewhere. Which brings me back to my initial question. Is there a place for bad writing? And the answer is yes. The reality is that in order to get good at something, you generally have to be bad at it first. That's how people learn. They see their mistakes so they don't repeat them. But if you refuse to acknowledge your mistake in the first place, then how do you grow beyond it? Something that the it's all subjective crowd seemingly fails to realize is that without bad stories, we wouldn't have good stories. After all, with nothing to contrast them against, they'd simply be stories. And if all stories are treated as being on the same level, it can easily be said that the Emoji Movie is as good as Lord of the Rings. The very idea is absurd and clearly harms the standard for writing. If we refuse to call bad writing what it is, then there's no need for good stories. And companies can just pump out mindless sludge for us to consume year after year after year. If there is no such thing as bad writing, then the art of storytelling is dead. And believe me, I know it can be hard to admit that what you enjoy or what you've created is just not up to snuff. If you're at all familiar with this channel, you might be aware of how my feelings concerning a certain TV series known as Star Wars: The Clone Wars evolved over time. I started out loving it. It was my introduction to a vast universe which I'd never known beyond Lucas's classic 6 films. But looking back, seeing how much it negatively impacted my writing, all the glaring issues it harbors, it's almost painful to acknowledge that I ever enjoyed it. It almost felt as if I'd somehow been betrayed. Star Wars: The Clone Wars, I gave you my love, and this is how you repay me? So for that reason, I'm sure the idea that there is no such thing as bad writing can be a comforting one. But I'd far rather be uncomfortable if it means I can move closer to my goal of becoming a better writer. And acknowledging the Clone Wars as bad has helped me do that. Because of that experience, I'm overall much more critical of what I watch. I'm better able to identify what makes something good or bad, which helps me improve my own writing. But there's still one underlying question in all of this. At the beginning of this video, I worried about whether or not I was offering something of value by simply sharing my subjective thoughts. I've already established that yes, there is a place for bad writing, and I've laid out my reasoning for why the everything is subjective argument falls flat. But does that mean there's no place for subjectivity at all? And the answer is, of course, there is a place for it. If you stop to think about it, subjectivity is the very reason why we have such a wide variety of stories. Because most often as writers, we write what we enjoy, what we want to see being told. So we inject our own interests, our own subjective preferences into the story. We may favor writing, say, romance instead of thrillers. Or we might lean towards certain character archetypes over others. We might enjoy specific tropes and thus implement them into our writing. Or maybe we're tired of seeing certain tropes, so we decide to give them our own unique spin or subvert the trope entirely. Obviously, no one genre, character archetype, or positive trope is objectively better than another. But as I said, that subjective preference creates variety in storytelling. If we all enjoyed and subsequently created the same things, well, the saying there is no such thing as an original idea would be indicative of a much bigger problem than it currently is. When it comes to what we subjectively enjoy, there aren't really any rules. Despite both my sister and I being accused many a time of trying to prevent people from enjoying the Clone Wars, that is not the case at all. We don't take issue with people simply enjoying the series. As I said, I used to enjoy it myself, and there are aspects of it that I still enjoy. We only take issue with people elevating the series above what it deserves, conflating their subjective standards with objective ones. Now, I understand it can be hard to draw the line between subjective and objective, which is why it's so important to be critical of what you consume. Understanding the mechanics of why you enjoy or don't enjoy something is a huge step toward differentiating between objective and subjective. From a young age, I was both blessed and cursed with a high level of self-awareness. So having that better understanding of myself coupled with what I've learned about writing over the years is a huge help in my differentiating between the two categories. Ultimately, objective and subjective have a complex relationship with each other. At times they can smoothly intersect or sharply diverge. A story can utilize both objective standards and subjective preferences to create something masterful. An objectively bad story can still hold subjective meaning for a person. In my own case, while I'll probably never revisit The Rings of Power and wholly acknowledge its glaring issues, the subjective experience I had of the series will doubtless stick with me for a long time. The same goes for stories like The Clone Wars, Captain Marvel, and Disney's live-action Mulan. While the ideas behind these stories are sadly wasted through poor execution, that doesn't mean they ring completely hollow. People love to rag on this scene from Captain Marvel, and given the context of the movie, it's understandable. After all, it's just one more instance of the narrative bashing us over the head with the "she's just so awesome" message. But when I look back on that scene in disregard of the narrative, I honestly love it. I find it empowering.
I have nothing to prove to you.
And the same goes for Mulan, or all these other modern stories centered around self-actualization. The idea of self-actualization itself is not inherently bad. Quite the opposite. It can be healing, compelling. Similarly, though my sister and I have heavily criticized Ahsoka Tano from the Clone Wars, the idea behind her character is not inherently bad. If you'd like to see how we would have handled her character, I'll post the link to our Fixing Ahsoka playlist in the description. Or if you'd like to see how some official Star Wars creators handled a strikingly similar character concept, check out my video on Ashara Zaros. And if you want to hear a quick writing fix for Rings of Power, check out this video by Book Furnace. Also, this is the last recommendation, I swear, but I would be remiss if I didn't point you to Hello Future Me's excellent breakdown on why the promising ideas and genuine efforts behind Rings of Power ended up falling flat. Now, just to backtrack for a moment, as I said earlier, having an understanding of yourself and your own personal tastes is a vital part of differentiating between objective and subjective. Internal consistency regarding character, world building, etc., setups and payoffs, thematic coherency, and so on and so forth, are all things that can be judged objectively. But your experiences, the things in life which subconsciously influence your personal tastes, can't really be measured on an objective scale. In my own case regarding Rings of Power, things such as quiet, heartfelt moments between friends, epic tragedies, anti-hero or anti-villain type characters are all aspects I personally enjoy seeing in storytelling. And the callback to Gandalf's line in Lord of the Rings, who doesn't enjoy being reminded of a story they loved? So in reality, it wasn't so much Rings of Power itself that I enjoyed, but rather the ideas behind it that appealed to me. And a common habit I've seen from Ahsoka fans is using headcanon to justify much of the character's behavior, which seems to pretty strongly indicate that it's the idea of Ahsoka that they appreciate, not the reality. So ask yourself, what genre or subgenre of stories are you drawn to? What tone, what character archetypes, etc. And then ask yourself why that might be. What personal experience may have caused you to gravitate toward those stories, characters, whatever. And regarding how the promising ideas behind bad stories can draw us in and sometimes blind its audience to the present issues, I am deeply familiar with how disappointing and frustrating wasted potential can be once acknowledged. I want good stories as much as the next person. And given our current era where the entertainment industry has seemingly agreed that there's no such thing as bad stories and therefore no need for good ones, it's easy for those of us in the objectivity camp to feel a sense of defeat as we're forced to sit back and watch our disappointments compound. But oftentimes, as I regard these failed stories, my writer's brain inevitably kicks in and asks the question, what if it was good? And cue spontaneous rewrite. The point I'm getting at here is that sometimes the best thing to do is just take the good and leave everything else behind. Though if you're going to take that as a justification for ignoring the bad in storytelling, then you obviously haven't been paying attention to this video. Rather, as creators, we can take those core ideas that drew us in and use them to craft something better, whether it be an unofficial rewrite or something more original. Through recognizing the good and the bad, we can see what works and what is worth salvaging from these failed stories. And through recognizing the bad, we see what weaknesses to avoid in order to ensure the landing, i.e. the execution, ultimately sticks. It's only through recognizing both good and bad that we are able to grow beyond our own limiting capabilities, starting out with haphazard scribblings before graduating to decent, good, better, and perhaps someday, masterful. Thank you so much for watching, and if you enjoyed, be sure to drop a like, share this video, and subscribe to the channel to stay tuned for future content. As always, the comments are open to respectful discussion. Also, if you're looking for more ways to show your support, Super Thanks is now enabled on our channel, or alternatively, you can consider becoming a patron. As always, massive thanks to those of you who already have. Don't forget to stay loud and proud, folks. I'm your alibi, and I will see you next time. That is a long sentence. I don't like that. I did not have a spot to put this in the video itself, but like, I just wanted to say, like, huge props to all the incredibly talented people out there who made rewrites for the Star Wars sequels. Like, just like, literally just go search up sequel rewrites and just like go crazy. I am like so astounded by just like the time and effort these people put into these rewrites, and they're just like, they're so good. So like, go give them love and try not to be depressed over the fact that these people are getting less attention and credit than the so-called professionals who are turning out garbage on a consistent basis. But yeah, I just wanted to throw that out there. Anyway, goodbye.